When people picture the White House, they imagine polished floors, formal dinners, stiff handshakes, and carefully controlled appearances. Now picture this instead. A busy household where children are racing through hallways, guests are trying not to trip over paws, and somewhere in the background a dog has decided that government business can wait because it's playtime. That was the Theodore Roosevelt White House. The Roosevelts didn't just own dogs. They lived with them like family. They weren't ornamental pets brought out for a photo and then tucked away. These dogs had routines, personalities, and access to the chaos of everyday life. Even official spaces weren't immune to the energy of a pet-filled home. Roosevelt's time in office is often remembered for big moments in American history, but for dog lovers, it's also remembered as one of the most animal-filled eras the White House ever saw. And the dogs? They weren't all the same type either. The variety tells you everything. Working dogs, terriers, a Pekingese, and dogs whose names became part of family legend. Let's start with the dog who became the household favorite in a way that's still talked about today. Skip. Skip is the kind of dog every family remembers. The one with too much personality for his size. The one who seems to choose his people. The one who turns into a shadow that follows a child everywhere. Skip's bond with Roosevelt's son Archie was especially strong, and that relationship is one of the most heartwarming parts of the Roosevelt dog story. The story of how Skip entered their world is almost cinematic. Roosevelt encountered Skip during a hunting trip in 1905 and described him with obvious affection in a letter to his daughter Alice, calling him a most absurd little dog, and even noting Skip's mixed terrier background. Roosevelt planned to bring him home as a gift for Archie. And you can just imagine the moment. The president arriving back from travel with a scrappy little terrier type that immediately becomes a core part of the family. Skip wasn't a showcase dog. Skip was the dog that made the house feel alive. He's also remembered for being the kind of terrier that didn't just trot politely beside you. He was bold enough to ride along on horses during outings. One of those details that makes you smile because it's so perfectly Roosevelt. Now, if Skip represents the rough and ready family spirit, the next dog represents something sleeker and sharper. Blackjack. The Roosevelt family had a Manchester Terrier named Blackjack, often shortened to Jack. He's described as a black, smooth-haired Manchester Terrier, alert, energetic, and very much a dog with presence. Manchester Terriers have that classic terrier vibe, quick, intelligent, and always switched on. In a household filled with children and movement, a dog like that isn't just along for the ride, he's engaged with everything. Blackjack was part of the daily texture of life, at home and at the White House. And he's one of the dogs frequently named among the Roosevelt's better-known canines. From there, the Roosevelt dog lineup takes a turn that feels almost unbelievable if you didn't know it was real. Manchu. Manchu was a small black Pekingese belonging to Alice Roosevelt, and the origin story is one of the most famous presidential pet details of the era. Manchu was reportedly a gift to Alice from the Chinese Empress Dowager Cixi during Alice's 1905 trip to the Far East. Just pause and appreciate how wild that is. A Pekingese, an imperial Chinese companion dog, ending up in the White House, padding across the same grounds where presidents gave speeches and hosted international guests. And the stories about Manchu are exactly the kind of thing dog channels love because they're so visual. The National Park Service even notes Alice's claim that she once saw Manchu dancing on its hind legs by moonlight on the White House lawn. Whether or not that happened exactly as she described it, it tells you the vibe Manchu carried. Small, dramatic, unforgettable. So far, we've got the scrappy terrier favourite, the sleek Manchester Terrier, and the imperial Pekingese. Now we shift to a dog built for the outdoors. Sailor Boy. Sailor Boy was a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and he's often described as one of the dogs Roosevelt admired most. Sailor Boy joined the Roosevelt household in 1902, and he fits perfectly into Roosevelt's image as an outdoorsman, strong, capable, and made for field work. What's especially nice here is that Sailor Boy isn't just mentioned in random retellings. he shows up in historical material. The Theodore Roosevelt Center's digital collection includes a letter noting that Sailor Boy, a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, had arrived and that Roosevelt had become his special master. That phrase, special master, sounds formal, but it's actually kind of tender. Like, yes, this is a working retriever-type dog, but this is also a dog with a place in the family structure. A dog Roosevelt personally bonded with. And if you've ever known a retriever, you know the vibe. Loyal, steady, happiest when they have a purpose. Happiest when they're near their person. Of course, the Roosevelt White House wasn't all calm loyalty and moonlit dancing. There was also the kind of dog drama that happens when you have a lot of animals and a lot of energy in one place. Pete. Pete was a bull terrier, and he's one of the most notorious Roosevelt dogs because he reportedly bit people, enough that he had to be sent away from the White House. The National Park Service mentions that he sank his teeth into so many legs, he was exiled to the Roosevelt home in Long Island. This isn't the cute, polished image we associate with presidential life, but it's real family life. Sometimes a dog doesn't fit the environment, sometimes a dog has behavioral issues, sometimes management means making a hard call. The reason this detail matters for a dog channel is that it makes the story feel honest. The Roosevelts weren't curating an Instagram-perfect pet roster. They were living with animals, mess, noise, complications and all. And then there's Rollo, the dog who likely made visitors do a double take. Rollo was a St. Bernard, a giant breed that is basically impossible to ignore. When people talk about the zoo-like nature of the Roosevelt pets, they often name Rollo because a St. Bernard doesn't just exist quietly in the background. Imagine walking into an elegant space expecting politics and formality, and there's a massive St. Bernard somewhere nearby, completely unbothered. That's the Roosevelt energy in a single image. What ties all these dogs together, Skip, Blackjack, Manchu, Sailor Boy, Pete, Rollo, isn't a breed theme. It's a household theme. The Roosevelt White House felt like a home. It was loud, it was busy, and it was filled with living things. The dogs weren't accessories. They were characters. Each one had a role. The child's best friend, the sleek little terrier, the regal oddball, the outdoor companion, the troublemaker, the gentle giant. And that's why these stories stick. Because at the end of the day, dog lovers don't remember a pet because it belonged to someone famous. They remember a pet because it acted like a real dog. It bonded to someone, it had habits, it caused chaos, it made life feel bigger. Theodore Roosevelt's dogs did exactly that. Only their backyard happened to be the White House lawn. If you're interested in learning more about dogs throughout history, make sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.